Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, in the country, whether you're watching a replay or watching this live. Much more fun live. So many people always join up. It's quite incredible. I've had, let's see who said hello. Well, do you know what? Let's call out Paul, okay? Paul, who I know, Paul, do you know what? I've forgotten, I can't believe I've forgotten your last name. Hold on 1 second. Uh, Paul Jackson, that's right. Yes, Paul. And we've been exchanging emails. You know, if you email me, I will. Weirdly enough, I will occasionally reply back. I try to help people. I'm not there for technical support. I do tell you that quite a lot, but I'll do anything else I can do to help and facilitate and things like that. And hopefully, I've been helpful to Paul. I think he said in the past I have. But yeah, he said he was an early bird. He was there like 25 minutes early, and Jeff said there's 35 other people there as well. So wow, you know, you're so enthusiastic. And also Terry's here from San Carlos, and he's saying it's cool, San Carlos. You don't mean cool, you mean, you know, like cool, cold, cool, yeah. Boyan, who's always here. Boyan, you're so amazing. He really is. Great guy. And we're going to do some more with Boyan in the future. And I have a low-ra radio kit on the way to me, so I'm going to be talking to Boyan about what we can do as well. Rainy Lugo in Spain, fantastic. Milan says snow in the forecast for Chicago. Oh, sorry about that. We won't get snow now. Not in Texas. Not going to happen. But it's all going, isn't it? And Stuttgart. Hello again, Oliver. Charles in Virginia. Abu says nice. If you're British, you'll understand what the nice means. It's a little reference to a comedy there. And Lewisburg. Oops, there's so many people clicking putting comments in. I can't click on them. BTM Burvets. And Paul said yes, of course, very helpful. Good. I'm glad I was helpful. Einstein, salut Einstein, ça va? He is in Nantes in France, and Darren, who's kind of up the road, Kansas City. Dude, if you're a Chiefs fan, I was there with you. My brother-in-law lives in Kansas City as well. And for those of you that are Americans or like the Super Bowl, not the best Super Bowl I think I've seen, and I can't believe the Chiefs got absolutely hammered. But enough sport. But it's good luck to the Eagles. But yeah, it was a bit sad. Jose is in Catalonia. Hello, my friend in Catalonia, beautiful country. Greetings from the netherworld. Da, 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 da. Yes, well, that's good to hear that we are working for the dark side as well. Hopefully, it won't be too awful for you. And Johnny Houston in Texas, a fellow Texan. Who else have we got? Sunny Tripoli in Libya, south of the Mediterranean Sea. Beautiful. Love the Med. Really brilliant. And Gordon in Serbia. My dog, who is now finished with his treat, is scratching the girl out. Whoops. Hold on. One of those desks that rise up and down, and I accidentally knocked the rise the up thing. That was nearly a nightmare. And Rick says, "Okay, I have a fresh latte and I'm ready for some serious learning." Good, because that is what's coming up. So today, a couple of things before we go and start on the presentation. There's a lot packed into the presentation. And there's a few links and things like that to various bits and bobs. And of course, now people are trying to text me when I've told them not to. There you go, muted them. Great thing for a watch. So I've got a lot of links. I've got some example code. I've got a few tips and tricks you probably don't know about. I'm confident, based on when I've given people advice in the past, that some of the things I'm going to show you today you will not know about. And that happens from time to time. But just as I was about to go live, I'm going to check and see if she's replied to my email to her. She has not, which is fine. I had an email from Dalia Prashnikar. Dalia is a very, very talented MVP of ours. and she is an author. She's a photographer as well, and I think her husband's a videographer. And I know her son does stuff as well. She's like the whole family are just oozing talent. It's really frustrating. Not that other people's families don't ooze talent. My daughter's very talented, and my wife is extremely intelligent. But Dahlia seems to be gifted with all sorts of things good, and she has written several books in the past, but she's got a new book out. And I've only had enough time to look at it like really, really quickly. But if you go to the scan this code, it'll take you to her site. That is her site. If you're not up on scanning QR codes, that's fine. But if you go to there, it's a new book. She's got it on the site. And she did tell me she's offering 25% off until the end of February. So unless you're watching the replay, let me just check. Was there a code or anything? Oh, it's a 25 discount right now. Good. So you don't even have to put in a code. There you go. But we will talk more about it on Friday, because Friday is the big webinar. Friday will be our celebration for the 30th anniversary of Rad Studio. It's a big deal. We've got a lot going on, and special video and guests and things like that. I'll probably be joined by some people in the studio, virtual studio, through things as well. But Dahlia, if you go to her site, scan that code and go to there. She's got a book out. It is called, and I will tell you what it is, Delphi Quality Driven Development. Now, I took a very, very quick look at it, and it includes things like how to use GitHub properly, testing, unit testing, all the kind of ancillary things that a good developer should be doing. And I can tell you that even amongst the MVPs, who are very smart people as a unit, or a gang or team or whatever you call them, Dahlia is very well respected. Sometimes we dislike her because she's too good, and we're like, "Oh, Dahlia, shush," But she is just one of these smart people. She's incredibly adept at things like explaining threading, multi-threading, and stuff like that. She has a book all about event-driven development, and several others as well. Just go there and take a look, because she really, really does know her stuff. Ciao to my friends in Italy, and Sakis is back. Hello, Sakis. I'm pleased to hear you around. Yasu, my friend. I hope you're doing well. And bom dia to Carlos in Portugal. And my Portuguese is non-existent. I can pretty much say hello and that's it. I can't even do that properly. And Doug Filtro says, I believe the proper term is not thingy, it's doohickey. Whatever. Yeah. that's some kind of private conversation going on there. Yes, it's excellent. But and Rick believes he's right as well. So is that related to timey wimey? Yep. Okay. I said, and Rick said, by the way, Rick, do me a favor. If you can't get hold of Dahlia, because I can message her directly. Okay. If you're having trouble getting hold of her, please feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email up here in case there is anybody that doesn't know, because some people don't. But email me here, and I will put you directly in touch with Dahlia. She is extremely busy, and she's not going to give people technical support, but she will, I'm sure, reply to your email, even if it's just to say no way or something like that. But she's she's extremely busy at all times, so that could be why she hasn't replied to you. Mahabari is saying, are you a member of Anonymous? I presume you're talking about my little mask there. One day I will discuss my history back in the day. The whole part about Anonymous, if indeed anybody was a member, and I can safely say I'm not a member as far as I'm aware. is that they're anonymous. So a real anonymous member would not put the mask up here. I collect a lot of stuff. If you look on my walls here, many of them have a meaning. And because I'm an author and a writer and generally a producer and creative as well as technical person, I think of the wall behind me as a mood wall. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And so they provoke things like, for example, the Union Jack, because I'm British, this boat, because once upon a time I said one day when I retire, I'd like to run a boat like that. And this here, believe it or not, which will talk about one day, is actually a soft toy from my childhood. I had this literally when I was a few months old, and I've still got it. My sister sent it to me, and the skull says Wilson on it. If you understand the reference, then you'll know why it says Wilson and how anybody can be stranded on a strange land. Borans, there's wobbly head things from Big Bang Theory and stuff like that, because I like Sheldon Cooper, and a few other things as well. And of course, the Delphi helmet. And actually, you can't see it at the moment, but up there, because of the way the camera's working, there is actually a proper sword to go with that helmet as well, and musical instruments, ukuleles, and hand scanners, and all sorts of kits. So, the propeller hat, by the way, here is a reference to Microsoft, because if you are, sorry, Google, if you're a Google newbie and you work there, they will give you a propeller hat, propeller head hat as a Noogle, I think they used to call them. I don't know whether they still do it, but that was just a little thing that I got a while ago. So anyway, good to hear from everybody. I am going to launch into my slides in a second, but I just make sure that we've got everybody here. Rick's going to email me. Being honest with myself, I just want to be sure she isn't missing any cells. Well, good. I'm sure she'll welcome any help that people can give her. She is a pretty forthright person, so don't annoy her, because I get the impression that Dali is the kind of person that will probably just tell you exactly what she thought of you if you annoy her. But she's I get on very well with her. We're good friends. So. Okay, so before I do the slides, I just want to remind you once again about the Delphi Summit. I'm going to keep pushing this because it's important and it's a big deal. And in fact, we will talk more about it on Friday. This Friday, if you don't watch any other webinar, watch Friday's webinar, because it is a celebration of all things Delphi. Friday is Valentine's Day, but it's in the Western world, but it is also the 30th anniversary of the release of Delphi. And we're trying to sort of reminisce about times gone past and show you some cool things. But also, these guys here at the Delphi Summit, it's not an Embarcadero event, but it is going to probably be the biggest event in Europe this year, I think. And lots and lots of people are going. I will be there. If you're a big fan and you can make it, and I appreciate and I apologize to people who cannot possibly make it for financial reasons or work related reasons, or just generally they've got better things to be doing. I'm sorry about that if you do want to go and can't, but if you do go, hang out with me, say hi. When you meet me in person, I'm just like this. I'm exactly the same. Please don't think I'm something special, because I'm not. I'm, relatively well known in the Delphi world, but I'm just like anybody else. And I would love to talk to you about Delphi and development and cool stuff like that and nerdy things. And if you want to, on Friday, we're going to show you behind the screen scenes about how we do the webinars and what goes into all those things, as well as the history of Delphi. So, come to the Delphi Summit. Marco Cantu will be there. Who is obviously the senior PM for Rad Studio and Delphi in general, a very much driving force in the Delphi language. Antonio Zapata, one of my colleagues, a very knowledgeable guy. If you're in Europe, you've probably met him. He's an excellent presenter, and he'll be there as well, as well as many other people like Ray Konotka and dozens of others. That just, it's a who's who of the Delphi world. So Delphi Summit, if you want to tag along and visit us, that would be great. And Bonjour, LinkedIn user. Unfortunately, I don't know your name, but hello from Paris as well. Paris, oh, c'est magnifique. A beautiful, beautiful city, Paris. I love it very much. It is extremely expensive to go to Paris, but, but apart from that, it's great. And Nigel says, hi. Hi, Ian. Hi, all. Good, I'm glad. Right, so enough of that. Let us launch into what will be the presentation. So give me 2 seconds whilst I set my screen up, because as you know, I keep thinking I'm going to do it, but I haven't got round to set my screen up so that I can see what's going on the chat and all the rest of it, and do the presentation without making a complete mess up of it. Mabadi says, wow, 30 years. You remember buying version 1? Yes, I do. Yes. Keep going. Great product. Yeah. And by the way, I didn't mention this before. And I don't think I've got it set up. No, I haven't. Is this it? No, that's outdated. I'll come back to that another time. But we have some news about great products and you know, how we're doing success wise. So you know, come to us on Friday, same time as now, and hang out with a few people and meet some of the faces of Delphi and talk to what's going on. Anyway, hello from Brasov, Romania. Hello there. Right, so let me share my screen and see if I can do this without making a horrible mess of it. And I am going to share that screen. That looks correct. Let me just make sure that I've got everything else right. 1 second. Yeah, good. And I'm going to hide my camera because we don't need to see me too much, but we do need to hear me. Right, good. Okay. Right, so Nigel says Delphi 3 Professional was my first. It sounds like people talking about old love stories, but I suppose, you know, that's why we're saying love for Delphi on Friday. On a magazine cover this, then I bought Delphi 5. Okay, so let's go and start the presentation and talk about what we're going to talk about. Those of you who don't know who I am, and believe it or not, there are more and more people that don't know who I am, because we're actually being successful at attracting new people in there. But my name is Ian Barker, and I am the Embarcadero Developer Advocate. You can email me, and please do, at ian.barker@embarcadero.com. You can also read about me on my websites and find out some of the other things I do, because I do quite a lot. And that is at about.me/Ian Barker. The slides for this presentation and a little bit of a replay will be up. It will not be up yet, but when it is, you go to tinyurl.com/HiDPI30. Go there and you can get all the slides and watch the replay. It'll be there in a couple of days at the most. It takes me a while to catch up. I've got a lot going on, as you can imagine, this week, so it takes me a little while. What are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about scaling for HiDPI. And we'll also talk about what HiDPI is, in case you've heard it but not quite sure what it is. And we're also going to really talk about, you know, how to make your apps work properly at any screen resolution. There's going to be quite a lot of information, so you will probably need the links, but don't worry, as I said, they will be up later on a blog post so that you can get all of them. So when we talk about HiDPI, it's sometimes you forget that the original IBM PC looked like this, and it was text-based, and that monitor was heavy. It was a good 25 pounds in weight or something like that. What's that, 12.5 kilos, 13 kilos? And the whole unit, I mean, that was a chunky box. The IBM PC was made out of solid metal, you know, bent round aluminium, for those of you that like to hear British pronunciation, and aluminum if you want to be an American. And this one was probably an advanced PCAT because it's got 2 drives. But we've come a long way since then. That the screen is not, you know, common. Even at the time that Delphi was released, if you were, the first decade of it being released, then these screens would have been cutting edge. These ones that you see in that image. I like the fact that, and this is a stock image that I've got from Pexels, but I love the way they look so disaffected of the youth there. And I tried to pick something that was representative, but you can see they've all got fairly bitty graphics on there, and big chunky monitors. And that was probably for the first 10 years, those would be cutting edge. I mean, those are quite wide screens there, probably a good 15 to 17 inches, that monitor there. But it was the old CRT style. And so, and as Nigel says, it reminds me of my Commodore PET. Yes, in fact, they were very similar. Now, they've got, as you can see in front of them, they've got some consoles and things like that. But that was really how we did things. So if you worked from Delphi 1 probably up to Delphi 7 or 8 or something like that, and we don't talk about Delphi 8, but if you using Delphi 7 and up to probably Delphi 10, your screens looked like that. Now, of course, things have moved on a lot. And today, not only is it that your screens are flatter and more beautiful, as you can see with that one edge on there, super, super flat and super shiny. I'm sure his eyesight goes and fails him very often. But you would probably have multiple devices and multiple screens. And so, the resolution with that has increased. That monitor in front of him is probably a screen resolution that is 6 times, possibly 6 times greater than the ones that those young kids were sitting in front of with the consoles there. And if your users might even be using screens on a different computer. And you might say, how will they do that? Well, if you see there, he's got 2 computers in front of him. It is possible using some utilities to have your program displayed on more than one computer at the same time, with the extra computer or extra device acting like a second screen. Nigel says that desk is neat and tidy. Yeah, it is. Mine does not look like that either. A working desk frequently is a little bit of a wasteland, isn't it? But yes, you could have it. Now, how could you do that? If you really want to, then you can use a tool from Microsoft Power Toys, which I've talked about before, and it has things like a utility called Mouse Without Borders. If you use that Mouse Without Borders, what you can do is share your keyboard and your mouse with other devices. So you could have, say, 2 laptops and a desktop or something like that, and move the mouse seamlessly between them. It's a little Microsoft Power Toy that does that. If you want to know more about the Power Toys, then you can go to aka.ms/install Power Toys. I love Power Toys. I use them a lot. I actually don't use Mouse Without Borders because I tend to be demoing things, and it gets a little bit tricky. It's bad enough as it is with multiple screens. When I had 3 screens, it was even worse, which is why I've cut down to 2, and why it's a little bit awkward sometimes for me to present the webinars and show things the way you'd want. Now, even if you have got just 1 screen, then it could look something like this. And that is, it could be super curvy, and that is the fashion. So it's like 52 inches wide, but curving around, and stupidly wide. I mean, if you cut that screen in half, that would still be a higher resolution and bigger than the old screens used to be back in the days of Delphi 7 and before, prior to Delphi 10 maybe. So it was a nightmare, curvy, bendy screens. By the time Delphi XE had come out, we moved on a lot, but it's only probably in maybe the last 2 to 3 years that these kind of super wide flat panels, or even curvy panels, should I say, have become more prevalent. And so, it's a nightmare. you can see there that he's got what looks like one app on the screen at the time, but actually there are tools that will allow you to have multiple apps on the screen docked in various ways. And even Windows now, if you hover over the maximize button in Windows 11 on an app that supports it, then and Delphi programs do out of the box, by the way, Delphi 12, your app will support this. But if you hover over the maximize button, it will then allow you to tile the app into certain corners of the screen. And it's entirely because of big bendy screens like this. Hello, Mark from South Wales. Don't worry, we don't take any fines or anything like that for being late. He said, sorry, I'm late, Mark from South Wales. Hello, Mark. But anyway, so your screens could look awful and bendy and things like that. Even if you docked an older app into the top left-hand corner of that monitor, you've still got to contend with the fact that there are quite a lot of pixels in there. And the weirdest thing is there might be more dots per inch than there are dots per inch. I want you to think about that for a moment. And so if you ask how many DPIs there are for certain things, it could be that there are more than you think, because there are such things as logical units and device independent pixels and DPI. They're all different. Yes, it can be a very complicated and tricky world. And it got a lot harder probably in the last 5 to 7 years, when Microsoft started doing things and supporting stuff. Now, the biggest problem really, apart from the resolution of the screen, now physical number of pixels across the screen, which could be 4,800 and something, 2,800 and something, instead of the old days where if you're watching on a computer, a TV at the moment, you're probably watching at 1080p, and that is 1920 by 1080 across 1920 and down 1080 pixels. The number of who's just joined my chat there? I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, the number of who is that? Who are you? Oh, it's Martha. Okay. Oh, producer Martha's joined. Hello, producer Martha. But yes, it's not so much the number of pixels that are a problem, it is the scaling. And the scaling is to do with the way that fonts are represented. So let's say you've got a regular font and it's 12 points. You would think that would be easy. You know what size 12 points are on the screen, and you can design your screen on your own computer. And you say, well, 12 points looks a bit weird and small on my 2K screen resolution. So what I will do is I'll increase that font size to 18 points. Hello, Murat from Istanbul. And you would think that would work, but actually it's further complicated by going into Windows, and there is a thing called the layout scaling, and that's where it all goes horribly wrong. If you get a 4K screen, typically people tend to scale it to 150%, and that means your fonts, even though you designed it nicely on your 2K screen to have 18 point showing up and looking cool and deadly and you can read it, when you go to someone who's got 150% scaling, all of a sudden now, instead of being 18 points, it is now 21 points across, which is great, except if you haven't made your controls cater for that, your fonts will look crushed. And that's the biggest problem that people get, is that edit boxes and label controls have the fonts crushed in and it looks wrong. Even even if you've scaled the actual controls themselves to be bigger, you can still end up with everything being crushed because of the resolution of the scaling there. Now, the good news is that actually, ever since Rad Studio 10.4, I think, but certainly 11.1 and upwards, and then 12 onwards, Rad Studio has had the ability to understand DPI awareness. Now, there have been previously some issues with the IDE, and I'll talk about that in a moment, where the IDE didn't scale very well. But it's getting better. It's got better. It's still not 100% perfect. It is way better than it was. And Pablo says, hello from Cordoba, Argentina, you pile of Delphias. Yes, hello to you. But yes, RAD Studio by default supports a thing called Per Monitor V2. What does that mean? Well, the problem you can have with screen resolutions is that your apps can run on a computer that's got 2 or more screens. And in fact, that's what's happening at the moment. So I have one screen that is a 2K screen, and one screen that is a 1080p screen deliberately, so it looks good on the webinars. And if I drag my app across from the 2K screen into the lower resolution screen, it looks weird. However, with RAD Studio 12, with the Per Monitor V2, that a lot of that is taken away from you, and the problem goes away. There is GDI scaling and system aware, and you can even say that you're unaware of scaling, and then it won't. The operating system won't try and help you with the scaling, and then things work differently. But Pablo says, all of you come from the dark times, Turbo Pascal 1. Well, no, not everybody. You'll be surprised. A lot of people are Delphi people, first and foremost. So anyway, it also, RAD Studio now includes the ability to have, for example, in FireMonkey, scaling X and Y, and the same with the positions as well. So there are some new things added. I'm going to talk about those in a moment and show you what you can do so that you can get a. Ahmed says, hello from Canada. Doug, you're from Canada, aren't you? I think as well. So Ahmed says, hello from Canada. I will put the hellos up in a minute when we go back to the camera view. So anyway, there are some capabilities inside the RAD Studio. This is both the VCL, so there are some scaling of images and control support scaling, and we can have multi-DPI images, and you should Google what that is or look at the RAD Studio 12 launch notes and see what we mean by that. And FireMonkey also supports that as well. So you can have scaling. So you can see it scaled at 62%. You can fit, you can have one-to-one and all sorts of exciting things like that. But in general, handling HiDPI is a little bit like snake charming. Sooner or later, if you're not careful, you're going to get bitten. And so here are some kind of tips and tricks to go from a cobra that's about to strike your finger. And dude, seriously, what are you doing? I wouldn't want my hand anywhere near a cobra. But in general, if you do some nice things and some tips and tricks, then you will find that you can take that snake and charm and turn it into one of your friends and look lovely and mellifluous and sweet like that one there. Recent versions of RAD Studio, you'll find that RAD Studio 11 upwards will understand Per Monitor V2 scaling. 12.0 went a little bit further and fixed some issues with the IDE with scaling, and then obviously 12.2 is as far as we've got so far, and that's fixed a lot more. We will continue to iterate over that and tidy up little bits and bobs, because even for us as Embarcadero, the RAD Studio IDE, it was tough, making everything work properly. It was we had a lot of people working on it, and even for us, we still got a few things wrong. And we going to iterate on those until we get them right. Things like virtual machines can be a problem, for example. Now, if you want to know more from us directly, then there is a whole doc wiki section which explains everything. Hang on before you go there, though, because I've got some other tips and tricks and notes and some demos as well. But there is a doc wiki section specifically dedicated to HiDPI. So it tells you things like the VCL designer DPI mode. And that actually is quite important, because if you work on a team or you work with other people, one of the things that you might have happen is that one of your team uses a very high resolution monitor. Looking at you, Holger Flick. And it could be an 8K monitor. Yes, really, these things do exist, particularly if you are an Apple fan and you've got lots and lots of money. You may have an 8K screen, and yet paupers like myself and others may only have at best a 2K screen or a 4K screen, or maybe not even that. Maybe they're lucky enough to have a 1980 by 1920 by 1080 screen, a 1080p screen. But either way, you know, they could have different DPIs. And the DPI, remember, the DPI is not what you think it is. Go to that section and it explains all about how DPI works. But if you are working in teams that are using different DPI, you can actually, in later versions of Rad Studio, turn on a setting that will mean that all of you automatically in the IDE have the DPI set to the same, even though your own personal DPI on your monitor or your screen is a different one, like 120 PPI or something like that, because there are people out there with 120 pixels per inch, which is the PPI. But you can set it so that all of you are using 96 DPI. It's only a fairly recent thing, so if you're using an older version like XE4 or something like that, it ain't going to work. You need to look at upgrading or getting a demo or a trial or something like that. Patrick says the issue we have with Embarcadero fixing the HiDPI thing bit by bit is that our own fixes will break every Delphi version. Actually, we believe that we tidied up kind of the final few things coming up. So I can't promise anything because we can't tell you in advance what's happening as one of IDEA's policies, and IDEA are our owners, therefore we have to do what they say. But we are, you know, we are always looking to do something about that. Most of them in 12.2, for example, most of the things that you would need to do to iterate over that or to try and mitigate, shall we say, you're probably not going to have to do. So well, I'm going to show you some of that as we go along. But hopefully things will have improved. If you have an older version of Rad Studio and it looks wrong at HiDPI on your monitor, and let's say XE3 or XE2 or something like that, my top tip for fixing that kind of thing is to go into the Windows system and then display, and then go down to scan and choose 100%. Make sure the IDE is shut or closed, and then turn the scanning to 100%. You will find that nearly all of the issues you have in terms of things not fitting in boxes will look a lot better. Now, it won't help your programs particularly, and certainly won't help them when they go into customers, but it will help you whilst you're editing apps and trying to do things with it with an older version. With 12.2, that's probably not necessary. Okay. The other thing that you can do is, if you really need to, if you're really getting problems caused to you by dot per inch, should we say, then you can go into, hit the Windows Start key and then type in DPI, and then you can choose a version of Rad Studio that is DPI unaware. What does that mean? It means the IDE will not do any scaling whatsoever. It'll look weird on a very high-res screen because it'll be tiny, but at least then you can zoom up the font size of the text editor, for example, and design the forms in a way that will be completely unencumbered by any mitigations that we put into the product to cope with HiDPI. Microsoft get HiDPI wrong themselves. If you don't believe me, try running, for example, the calculator and then dragging it from one screen to another and maximize it, and you'll see weird things will happen. They do have lots of other products. I think even the Windows Store app, I'm sure it was that the other day I was running, and I had it on one screen. I'm like, oh, I need to put it on a different screen. And then all hell broke loose because it just didn't scan. I couldn't click on buttons and things like that. Clicking maximize on a C# app also caused me some weird issues. So it's not just us. I think it's hard for lots of companies, good companies. I'm not knocking Microsoft; they're a very talented bunch of people, but good companies to get right. So you know, if you're having problems with HiDPI, you're not alone. It happens to the best of us. Now, one of the things that you can use in later versions of Rad Studio is to use the scale by method. Now, what I've got there is a little app, and I'll show you this unit in a moment. Is it goes along and it will scale the app to fit the screen. So what I have here is the app is running on a 2K monitor, but it was designed on a lower resolution monitor, 1980 by 1920 by 1080 screen. And so when it runs by default without scaling, because I turned it off, it looks small, and the fonts look small, and nothing looks right. So what my demo app does there is, if I click on the button that says Nice Scale, what it does is calls a routine, which I happen to put into a unit, and I will upload once I upload the blog post. But it will scale the whole form, all the controls on it, automatically with one line of code to be relatively the same size. So, for example, if it was supposed to be a quarter of the screen on a 1920 by 1080 screen, when you call this Nice Scale or click on the Nice Scale button, it will occupy a quarter of the screen on a 2K monitor. If you go onto a 4K monitor and my clicked on the Nice Scale button, it will do the same thing. It will automatically scale the whole form to be a quarter of the size of the 4K screen. Same with an 8K screen, and God forbid they invent a 12K screen or something amazing like that. It will scale to be a quarter on that screen as well. It does it using a little bit of mathematics, which is not terribly difficult stuff. And I'm going to show you where to find out all about that. But that is using the scale by method, and it's fairly easy to do. And by the way, when I click on the reset button, it's just that unit happens to store what the original size was when it first started, and click back. So I've turned the scaling off, and then I manually auto scale it, if that makes sense. Notice it's scaling the fonts as well. So the font size is 9 and 14, all the rest of it. You can see it's going up and down. So it is possible to do within the VCL and do what you need to do. Now that's the code, and I've called my unit Magic Scaler. I think I called it something like that. But as I said, when the blog post comes out, I'll make sure that you can download it from GitHub and have a look at what I did. It's nothing complicated. As you can see there, that's the entire unit to scale the entire form. You could do it as a helper, like a form helper, and then every time your form just displayed, before it did anything else, it would automatically scale. You'll notice there, if you look down at line 60, I've said there, if you design at 96 DPI, so let's say that's how your screen is set up, then you can use screen.activeform.scale by screen.pixels per inch, 96, and it will automatically work out the ratio and scale your entire form automatically for you. Okay, now I happen to do it based on some sizes, so I work out what the size of the form is, the original width, and then I work out what I want the width to be for based on the monitor width, and then it will scale the form there. It's the same thing, it's the same calculation. Scale by is looking for a ratio of one old width versus another old width, and then it works out what the ratio is and does it there. Now, one thing to know about scaling, if you scale too much, you can end up with a problem. And the reason is that scaling is not an exact science, because not all monitors are exact ratios of your monitor when you designed it. It could be, for example, it could be a portrait monitor. In other words, instead of being landscape like my slides are, imagine the slide turned on its side, and so it was standing upwards, like a book. Portrait, or whatever you want to call it, A4 portrait. Then your ratio is going to be weird, and you'll have to do some messing around and getting things right. What other things? Well, for example, my top tip, and my dog is barking at the door. So I'm going to let him. Stop barking. There you go. Sorry about that. The penalties of working with office dogs. I definitely recommend, rather than reading a big blog post by me, because I could write a load of stuff, somebody else has already done it, so it saves me the time. His name is Arko Gajic, and he is a very, very smart MVP. He's written quite a few books. If you go to packet.com, Packet, packet.com, His books are on there, I believe, but if you go to his website, you'll read all about it. His actual URL for his site is a very long URL, so I've shortened it to tinyurl.com/Zarko Delphi 30. Go there and it will take you to the page that's on display at the moment. Excuse me, but that is only one of the pages about it, because he's pretty much covered every possible angle you could. So I don't see any reason why I should repeat it, or it would be difficult for you to remember everything anyway. But he covers things like scaling of HiDPI and graphics and things like that. Read also into that some of the things to do with our multi-res bitmap, which is in version 12 of Rad Studio, because that also plays into this. Some of Zarko's articles that he links there are slightly older, and they were before some of the improvements that we put into Rad Studio 12. And I mean, it is an amazing resource. If you see there, for example, there is and he's scaled the graphics. So on the left is the original graphic, and then he's scaled them on the right. Great guy, very, very useful MVP. I've got a lot of respect for him on a personal level anyway, but I'm not the only one. I can tell you most MVPs probably learn by reading a lot of Zarko stuff, because he really knows what he's talking about. And another thing to do is, if you can't make anything else work, let's say you've got an old Delphi program and your customer's already using it, and or your users already using it, and you've got no ability to upgrade that particular version. I don't know, maybe you're missing some component sets, or you just suddenly discovered there's a problem with HiDPI on your program, and your customer's like, this looks stupid, it's too tiny, it doesn't work. And you can end up with an app that looks super tiny on a 4K screen, because you designed it back in the days when it was a 1024 by 768 screen. Well, actually, Windows contains a capability to fix that. If you right click on your executables properties, you can then go into the compatibility. So that's number one there. So right click on your executable, select properties, and then go to compatibility and click on the thing that says change HiDPI settings. When you go into there are two very useful settings. One of them is to say that you can fix the DPI, and Windows will try and patch it up. You may not know this, but Microsoft spend a lot of time trying to actually make people's applications work well with their latest versions of Windows. And there was a tale one time by it's on the Old New Thing blog. I forget his name now, but he talks about a time where they went into a like a computer store back in the day when you had box displays of software and floppy disks and shells, and they were releasing, I think it was Windows 95 or something, and they went in and they bought every single piece of software. It was the Microsoft team, Microsoft Windows team, and they brought it back. Raymond Chen, that's who it was, Ray Chen. And they brought it back, and everybody in Microsoft was encouraged, on the development team, was encouraged to take one piece of software and test it out on the new version of Windows. That is one of the things that Microsoft used to do in order to, check that they would be able to support, that programs would run on Windows. Because, of course, if they release a version of Windows and nothing runs on it, they're stuffed. Nobody will want the latest version of Windows straight away. They release the latest version of Windows, and everyone goes, "Nah, my apps that I need, my banking app or something like that, doesn't run, so I can't upgrade to the latest version of Windows." So they spent a lot of time creating things called shims to make that compatibility. And this is what you're looking at now: compatibility settings for dots per inch, and behavior in general. You know, you can say behave like it's a Windows 95 or Windows 98 program. Really, you can still do that. But if your app is one there you can't do anything about the DPI, it's out there already, then you can give this to your support people if you run support people, or just use it in, you know, your own support answers, or just generally talk to your people, or even use it yourself. Go into those compatibility settings and choose a HiDPI and change these two settings. The one that's most interesting is this one, and that is HiDPI scaling override. You can say system enhanced, application or system. Once you fiddle around with this and you can tick the top checkbox instead, you'll find that you know, things will probably scale properly, even for a very old program from, you know, Delphi 7 days or something like that. It's a good tip on how to kind of save yourself from disaster. So there you go. But that really isn't you know, solving the problem in code. The real way to solve your problem in code is to do it in the application. So what I'm going to do is do a little demo now. That's my contact card, as I said before. There's a lot in this webinar with slides and links and things like that. So you're probably going to want to read the webinar post when it's up. If you go there at the moment, it will take you just to the product page. But once I've written the article, so I can't, it's chicken and the egg. I have to do the webinar before I can write the article about the webinar. But all the slides from today, all of the links and all of the examples will be available on that page. So let me just show you my screen. Now, this is going to be an example of where I can't show you something on the webinar live. Okay, and the reason is that in order to broadcast, I need to use my lower resolution screen. So what will happen is that when I run my app here, and it's running in the background, it will appear over on my other screen, because I have this set up. Let me just pull this over. I have a screen set up like this, behind the screen scenes thing here. So I'm showing you this screen. My actual screen that I'm doing all the other stuff on is this screen here. But you will see here that it should show up. Yes, I'm just checking the playback, and you can see it. You can decide to scale the screen by anything you want. Now, if I select nice scale, nothing's going to happen. The reason is that I designed the app at the resolution it's at. So it's at 96 DPI and everything looks fine. If I instead say scale the app by 200%, now you see that the whole thing is scaled up. And all of a sudden it's ginormous. And that's because it's 200%. Now, if I say, oh, I don't want to do that, if I click on reset, it'll go back to the regular size again. Now, if I do that on a high-res screen, what will happen is you can see on my screen here, it is roughly a sixth of the size. So you could fit 3 of these across. If I went a super high-res screen, a 2K monitor or something like that, or a 4K monitor, you'd find that this app would be super tiny. In fact, it'd probably be like this kind of size. By hitting the nice scale button, it would actually scale it to be relatively the same size. So on the 4K screen, which is much wider, it would actually still, you could still fit 3 across, but now everything would be visible. How do I do that? Well, I have this code here. And then what I do is I have the button here that says nice scale. And all I'm doing is calling my little unit called Magic Scaler. Okay, and I scale to monitor. How does that look? Well, I've got a little interface there, because it's always good to program to an interface. And this is so that you can create, you know, descendants of your own that behave similar and have completely different behavior if you want. Scale to monitor. Well, what happens is when you first create the magic scaler, it's going to have the base size that you've set. So what am I doing? We're in the base size. Where is it? Yeah. I'm by default, I'm just setting it to be 1920, which is the original screen resolution that I wanted it to run at. So it creates that little magic scaler thing. Okay. And then when I say scale to monitor, all it does is it gets the address of the monitor that's being used, the screen, if you like, and make sure that it gets the width of that monitor. Okay. It just make sure that I've previously stored the original width of the app, width of the monitor. So if I've changed monitors, it will know that there's a difference. And then if there's a difference between the last width and the new width of the form, in other words, if I've already scaled it, then it will scale for that monitor. It uses the scale by method, and that just takes an original width, a new width and an original width. But this is also possible to do by saying what the screen pixels per inch were versus the pixels per inch that I was creating the app at. Now you might say, well, where would I find that? And again, it is in the monitor settings. And let me see if I can get this correct. Yeah, if I remember, you can't see the pixels per inch now on here. Yeah, I think with Windows 11, it used to show it. It used to show you the pixels per inch, but I don't think you can do that because you can see like the resolutions it supports. There are no pixels per inch. If anybody knows where the pixels per inch are on a Windows 11, let me know. But anyway, I can tell you it's 96. I think it's to do with graphics, displays and things like that. But I'm because I am by default editing the form at 96 DPI. And you're probably doing that as well. This line here would, so you could just put that line in your app, and it would scale automatically. What does that look like? Well, let's just remind ourselves. Come over here, scale it by 200%. So now it's going to say I'm going to scale bigger. Oh, I want to be the normal size again. Now, if I did it on my other screen, my 4K screen, this screen would look the same. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That is your auto scaling. Okay. So let me just go back to the questions. The thing about HiDPI is it's not difficult to do. By default, Rad Studio will cope with a lot of what you need, and you'll find your apps will just look okay. But there's a couple of things. HiDPI setting is important, and the reason it's important in Rad Studio 11 upwards, 11.1 I think was the first version that had it, is that if you run an app on a 2 or 4K monitor or 3K monitor even, 2 or 4K, I think those are the most common sizes, and your app was designed in, say, Delphi 7 or something like that, you will see it looks fuzzy. And the reason is just the way it renders the graphics, because Microsoft are doing their best, but the rendering technology is not great. If you use later versions and you have that little setting that I showed you in the slides, it says per monitor DPI. I forget what the setting is now. I need to pull my screen up again. Hold on 1 second. What's it called, Ian? Come on. Per monitor V2 setting, then you won't get that blurriness and fuzziness. And like I say, if there's nothing you can do about your app, then use that little hack or trick that I said about going into the compatibility settings, selecting the properties for the compatibility settings and looking at HiDPI settings, change it. But the unit there and Zarco's website gives you all the answers you can want. Now, just in case you didn't get it, that is Zarco's site. Again, I could write a big blog post like this, but there's virtually no point because Zarco has written all about it. I can point to the QR code. Go there. He does a marvelous job. He talks all about the background to DPI and why it's important, and covers, the kind of settings that I've talked about in my little bit of code there, the scale by settings. He also covers the properties and what effect they have as well. So really good resource and definitely worth having and looking at. If you haven't already done it, and you should do, you should also go to the webinar site here. And if you want to know more about some of these topics, because we've got a lot coming up, we're only at number 9, I think, out of 30. Because Rad Studio is 30 on Friday, I said, let's do 30 webinars to support 30 years of Rad Studio. Crazy thing to do, but hey, there you go. So 2 a week, every Tuesday, every Friday. If you want to know what topics are coming up, go here and have a look. If you want to, and you feel like it, if you've got some suggestions for topics, then do feel free to email me. And my email address is there, ian.barker@embarcadero.com. And I've had, in the last week, probably 6 or 7 suggestions of webinars, and they've been really good. We're covering all sorts of things. Let me just have a look at my little thing. So today's about DPI. On Friday, at the same time as today, we're doing the 30th anniversary webinar. Special guests will be there, and it'll be a kind of look back at the good old days and how things have changed. We've got a massive timeline thing, and we're probably going to get one printed and might give it away. There's a couple of people offering some free gifts. Then we've got some stuff about Spring 4D and Docker and how to create PDFs, how to send email with Gmail and Outlook, because actually that's become a problem of late. We have a solution for that. How to create web apps the easy way, and so on and so forth. We're going to keep going, a whole ton of things. Like I say, this is only webinar number 9 of 30, so it's going to be quite good. Now, let's just talk about some of the questions that we've got. Yeah, Patrick said the issue we have with Embarcadero fixing the HiDPI thing is bit by bit is that our fixes are done. We're trying to do as many as possible, and we think we're nearly there. And I get it. You know, I absolutely understand that your own fixes will break. I don't know what to say about that. You know, use the scale by, because that, for example, that is one technique that if you're Nigel says, what do you do to force the screen to change the resolution to a requirement and hold it up? Okay, so Nigel, I did cover this, but the good news is I've got an answer for it. Go to the right click on the executable, select properties, and then go to the compatibility tab. And then in there's a HiDPI button. Click on that, and you can get it to change to any screen resolution you want. So if your Delphi game needs to be 800 by 600, Windows will run that game at 800 by 600, even if it's a 4K screen. It'll look weird, but it will actually scale it for you. It upscales it somehow. So right click on the executable, properties, compatibility, HiDPI, go in there and you can change it. So that'll do it. Alan says, great presentation. Thanks. Good. Okay. I'm glad. Thanks, Alan. And Ron Melissa says, Philippe Khan. You know, if any of you know Philippe Khan personally, and you can get him to agree to come to the webinar on Friday, please let me know. We've reached out to a couple of people who aren't names from the past, but Philippe Khan is just he's stratospheric. The guy's on a different technological planet in terms of what's going on. So Ron says yes. Oh, sorry, different one. I still use file open dialog and file save dialog. These components still look weird with HiDPI. No change in 11 and 12. Okay, I'm not sure about that. I did see someone mention this the other day, and I believe that if you go to Zarko's page, he talks about exactly that problem. So I can't claim to know for certain, but I believe that's been looked at. So go to that page. Ron says, yes, having Zarko on. Yeah, he might come on, actually. I'll ask him. See. Nigel says, thanks. I was on my way home, so I missed most of the webinar. Nigel, you should have pulled over and watched it on your phone or something. it it will be a replay. We always put the replay up. Like I say, go to the webinar site, but also the blog post, which I talked about earlier on. What else have we got? Question wise and things like that. Delphi Summit 2025. And I also mentioned earlier on, but we'll just put it up again, Zarko's website, because the guy has most of the answers that you could ever want. Okay, well, I think I'm done with it. Someone did ask about the dog and said, what's going on with the dog? I took a photo of her. She's lying on the floor. That is, she's been out in the wet, which is why she looks like she's got pink shoulder blades or something like that. But you'll notice that she's got treats on the floor because she's very, very spoilt, which is why she's tubby. She's getting old now. And the other one usually sits under the desk. There he is, chewing a chew. And yes, he does sometimes knock the cable, so I'm very, very careful what he does. But he's a good boy. He goes and sits in the corner. But that's if you hear dogs in the background, that's what's going on. So it's all fun. Okay, all right. Well, I think that's it for now. Look for the blog post on the main blogs.embarcadero.com site. You will pick them up. If you're not sure where that is, you can go to here embarcadero.com and then click on products or blog and click on the blog and you'll see it there. I think there's like on the front page they usually have the blog there. I also want to mention as well Blaise Pascal magazine, because I write for that from time to time. I've got an article in it this month about, I think, the first day I ever saw Delphi. So I'm sure that's what it was. But Blaise Pascal magazine.eu. Go there. He's a very interesting guy. Okay. Someone says, is she alive? Yeah, she's asleep. She's fine. Bad, I think you're dead. she's down behind me here. You can't see her. She's off camera, but she's absolutely fine. Rick says, thanks. Delphi on every desktop. Yes, yeah. I might have missed it, but in project options application manifest DPI awareness, is there a recommended setting? Yes, per monitor V2. Per monitor V2. That is the recommended setting. I would definitely say that should be, and it's the default, by the way, in 12. Neil says, thank you. You mentioned putting the scale by thing in your app. Where? In the main app code? Yes. Actually, on the forms. Zarko explains where he wants to put it. I just happen to put it in my, I think, on show or something like that. But I'll put the example up and you can work it out for yourself. Go to Zarko's site. He's got it there. Paul says, I'll see you on Friday. Great presentation. Thank you. I don't want to keep clicking on thanks, but I'm glad everybody does it. Thank you for another great webinar. Ian, one question. Andrew Leggett, Man United or Arsenal? Shall I tell you something, Andrew? I was born in Woolwich in London, Woolwich for Americans, Woolwich in London. And my father used to work at Woolwich Arsenal. My grandfather on my mother's side also used to come from Charlton. So he supported Charlton Athletic, but he also worked at the Arsenal as well. So I'm afraid I would have to be a fan of the Gunners. Now, I actually am an NK Dons fan, but that is a very niche comment for Brits there. But yeah, Arsenal. My nephew is a Man U fan, so it's all good. Jerry says, well done, thank you. And you need a couple of cats. Actually, no, I really don't. My daughter used to live with us and she had a cat. That was awkward. We've got 4 birds and 2 dogs, and that's good as there. It says, long live Delphi. Yeah, that's right. Come and join us on Friday. Do more of that on Friday. And by the way, actually, that makes me remember, it's all time pleasant to hear you. By the way, that does remind me, for those of you who left, and there's a good couple of hundred, if you're a fan of Delphi and you're up to it, and I don't care what language you can use English or French or whatever your language is, could you get a phone or some kind of webcam or something and just record a 30 seconds to 3 minutes maximum video saying what you like about Delphi, Even just saying, I like Delphi or something like that. I don't care what you say. Don't read it from a script because it looks odd. Because you're like, I've always liked Delphi, but just as natural as you can, be truthful. If you don't like Delphi, don't do it. But if you like Delphi, if you remember what it was you liked about Delphi or what things you like about Delphi, record that video, upload it to something like Google Drive or OneDrive, and then email me a link to it. If you do that before Friday, we will feature some, if not all of them, on the webinars. We've already got quite a few already, but just on the camera, hey, my name is Ian Barker, and I'm a Delphi fan, and I remember using Delphi. I remember seeing Delphi in a magazine, and I was blown away by it straight away. And I went out and bought it the day that Delphi was released, and I still have the invoice. I like it because it is robust. It creates apps very easily, and I think doing it any other way is doing it the hard way. That would be my kind of app video. Store it, put it on G Drive or OneDrive or Imager or however you share things, or send big file or whatever, and then email a link to it to me, and we'll feature you. So if you want a bit of fame, we will do it. I would like some Delphi fans to come along and do that. That'd be great. Oh dear, Nigel says he supports Chelsea. Do you want to know something funny, Nigel? If you go to audible.com and download the Chelsea FC pub quiz audiobook, you'll recognize the voice because it's me. I used to do voiceover work for Audible, and the Chelsea FC audiobook, that's my voice. You'll see me there. So question 5, that kind of voice. It's hilarious, isn't it? Question 5: Stamford Bridge is the home of Delphi. That kind of thing. So it's fun. Since Pascal Boulogne with Mr. Khan and French magazines. Yeah, Philippe Khan. We owe a lot to Philippe Khan. He was he's a force of nature, that guy. But he knows what he's doing, and he helped birth the product. Without him, for sure, it would not exist. And all sorts of things went on. Doug Filtrell says, "Can I gift my Delphi memorabilia to you?" We would accept it on behalf of the company and use it for sure. That would be great. Doug, do you say you're in Canada? I think you did before, but just email me. Feel free, and we can go from there. But don't give away if you think it's valuable. But if it is something like that, we would actually use it. We've got like a little museum and bits and bobs. You'll see Marco Cantu has a whole shelf behind him of old boxes. I emigrated to the US, and I literally arrived with 2 bags actually, but 1 big bag and virtually nothing else. So all of my old Delphi boxes went to someone else. So there you go. Nigel says, "Oh dear," presumably because I'm an Arsenal fan. There you go. Or MK Dons, which is unpopular choice. Anyway, I hope it was useful. Come back this Friday, same time, midday, my time, so US Central Time, and I think it's 6 p.m. 6 p.m. UTC. I'm not sure, but anyway, we have it on the emails. If not, go to the website and check up, and we will see you there. And we're hoping that we'll get some special guests. They've said they'll turn up, but you never know until they actually turn up. And lots and lots of fun happening on Friday. And then after that, every Tuesday and Friday, we carry on until we've done 30 webinars for 30 years of Rad Studio and Delphi. Thanks very much. I'm going to go. I'll see you all again soon. See ya. Bye. 6 p.m. UTC, says Nigel. Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was. I wasn't sure. Yeah, because right now the UK and the as he says, same as GMC. Because I was born in Woolwich, I was actually born 1 mile away from the Greenwich Meridian. That line in the sand. There you go, just on the side of the Meridian. There you go. I'm a Londoner by heart. All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody. See you on Friday. Make sure you come along. It's going to be cool.